actually, we're now live. So that was a good little introduction. Hello, everyone. Lovely to have you all here today. Thank you for joining us again for 1854 Presents. I'm Zoe Harrison. I'm a creative producer here at 1854 Media, and I'm delighted today to introduce Viktoria Sorochinski. Some of you may have tried to tune in a couple of weeks ago to watch this talk, but unfortunately we had some technical difficulties, but we're here now, and we have some lighting, we have a working computer, so it's all good. So for those of you who don't know Viktoria's work, Viktoria is a multi-award winning photographer whose work has been displayed in nearly 70 exhibitions in 21 countries throughout Europe. Forgive me, Europe, North and South America and Asia. So that's a little bit, that was quite a blunder on my part. She's also published and reviewed in over 70 international publications, and over the past 10 years she's been creating work which primarily deals with relationships and family dynamics. In addition to her creative practice, she also gives lectures, holds workshops and talks in various institutions worldwide. So great to have you here today, Viktoria. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for inviting.
So as always, let us know where you're watching from, and if you have any questions for Viktoria, do send them in. We'd love to hear where you're watching from, and we'll go through as many questions as we can at the end, depending on how long we go on for. And as always, this talk is free, as I'm sure you all know if you're watching. But we do, of course, believe the photographer's time is valuable, so please do consider donating in support of this event. 100% of the donations will go directly to Viktoria and her practice, and you will see the link below, so it should go straight to the donation page. So if you're in a position to do so, please do take a look. To keep up with upcoming events, awards and commissions, please do subscribe to our newsletter in the box below. And if you miss a live stream, or if you fancy catching up on the rest of them, they're all in our archive, which again should be further down below as well, which you can watch after we're finished having a chat. But that's all me chatted out. So Viktoria, how are you today?
I'm good, thank you.
Good.
Thank you so much for having me here and inviting me to do this interview. I'm really honored. I love British Journal of Photography, and really it's a big pleasure to be here tonight.
It's a pleasure to have you. Your article that we have up on our website has been one of our most viewed in the past couple of months.
Oh,
so
wow.
I'm sure a lot of people are already familiar with your work. But for those who are watching who maybe aren't, do you want to maybe describe your practice?
Yeah, well, as you said, I do. Well, I don't know if you mentioned that. I don't remember that. I come from a very kind of multidisciplinary background, actually. And maybe I should also mention that I'm an immigrant nearly all my life. So that I've been born in Ukraine, and I lived in several different countries, such as Israel, Canada, New York, and before that, even northeast of Russia. So, and now I'm living in Berlin, in Germany. So, of course, it does, in some ways, I think, influence my practice, but it maybe not in the straightforward way, but it definitely does, I think, inform my work. And yeah, so like you said, I have been mostly focusing on family dynamics and relationships for maybe over 10 years, I think. And recently my focus shifted slightly. I started photographing myself, which, well, it was not the very first time. I have already done a project like that more than 10 years ago, which was my thesis work in New York University in 2008, where I photographed myself, and the project was sort of based on my dreams and memories and fantasies, but it was somewhat related to my past in Ukrainian village where my great-grandparents used to live, and where they also died. So anyways, this project that we will show today, which is called INsideOUtside.
I'll get a few pictures up while we're having a chat.
I actually started shooting and done entirely the whole project during the Corona lockdown. But I must say that actually the whole project was kind of building up in my mind. It started to build up in my mind before the Corona time. It's just that the Corona time sort of made a big push to actually make it happen. I did think to get back to this idea of photographing myself and really working hands-on a project in a closed space and sort of creating the scenarios or imaginary scenarios, and not just working with the available, with other people and their home environments that I usually do. But in this project specifically, I actually work with very, very minimal, very minimal objects, very minimal environment, because it was all done in one single room. And obviously in Corona time, we had actually it is still Corona time, but it is not so strict like it began,
Yeah.
And when it began, it was, the first shock. Of course, I think everyone lived the first shock. And I thought, wow, what am I going to do? It's going to be horrible. And then suddenly I had this opposite feeling that actually now, I have the time to think, I have the time to reflect, I have time to work on things that I haven't had time to do before. And I also happen to have a space where I could actually do it, which sort of happened all in the same time. And by the way, well, maybe I should reveal this secret. It's not done in my home. It's a studio. Well, it's like a room, basically like a room in a normal building, but it's not in my home, because in my home I have only one room. I have no other space. It's another building where I work on my projects. And at the time, I just got this room just like 1 month before the Corona kicked in. And so I had the space, literally empty room, nothing in, and just very minimal objects like a table and some curtains. That's it. And I started photographing based on my daily experiences and my feelings at the time. And I must say, I'm also a very, very extensive dreamer. So I've based a lot of my images on the dreams that were happening in the moment, in a very short period of time. So that was.
And just actually, one thing I've actually just noticed that now that I'm looking at your images, there seems to be, I don't know whether it's just the first three that I've had a look at, but there seems to be a red theme that kind of runs throughout it. Was that intentional, or is that just the first three images that I've looked at?
Well, the first three images, yes. I think they do have more red than other. It's not in every image there is a red theme, but I do like, well, I also must say that this project, the same as my other work, is very symbolic and metaphorical. And I like to use symbols that are, how to say, that are touching on collective subconscious in a way that anyone can relate to, that even if people come from different cultural backgrounds, they can still create their own narrative, their own, they can imagine a story behind, or they can connect on personal level, or, different ways that, so all the symbols that I'm using, they of course have a meaning for me personally, but I'm also always hoping to have them open for interpretation. And yes, the red, of course, is one of the very strong colors. And as you can probably notice, that I love working with colors in general. So I always try to put meaning in every color that I use in the picture. It always has a certain meaning and a certain symbolism, besides the actual objects, or the I don't know, fruits that can have certain meaning, or other objects that I'm using. The color itself also has a very specific meaning. So
This is such a great image.
Thank you.
I love this one.
I mean, they were all very spontaneously done. This probably one of the most kind of spontaneous and in the moment projects, but in the same time, very kind of, I had this, what I like about the process of this project, that it was for me kind of like a meditation in a way, because I work completely alone. I come often without a very specific, clear idea what I was going to do. Sometimes just take a walk in a park or walk on a street. I don't know, find a branch of a tree hanging on, lying on the ground, or see something that is someone done on the street, just moments like that suddenly bump in your head and like create an image. And then I come to the room and I start just playing around, and with the light, there was a big luck with this room that it's very, very sunny, and a lot of daylight coming in, so I could really play with the light and shadow.
That's actually one question that I have for you is, is this all this, am I right in saying that this was all shot in one room?
Yes, all shot in one room, and all shot using daylight. I didn't use any artificial lighting at all. That was on purpose. I could, of course, but I wanted really to keep it very minimal, very basic, and really keep it as close as possible to the experiences that many people are going through in this time, because most of us didn't have any access to equipment or anything else.
Did you ever get frustrated or kind of creatively exhausted, kind of just working with the one space, or is it something
Actually,
that
yeah, definitely, yes, definitely. I mean, it happened a few moments where I because the room is, it's like a super basic room, and there was literally at some point I felt, okay, I've used every corner, there is nothing else. What else can I say? What more can I do? How can I make them look different? And but somehow, then, and there were days when I would come with zero inspiration, and just start somehow, just looking at the light and playing a little bit, and with things that I could get on the way, and suddenly something would happen. And it was kind of really very spontaneous process.
Did you shoot every day, or is it something that
not every day, but maybe, let's say, every other day, something like that.
That's to shoot every other day and to come up with something new for one room is quite a lot of ideas to come up with. So
well, yeah, sometimes, yes. It was also unusual for me to photograph myself so intensively, because, like I said, I usually photograph other people, and I like to get inspiration from watching other people, or from, because I usually work in between documentary and staged, or documentary and, I don't know, fictional style. So I usually try to get something from the subjects that I'm photographing, and from their environment, from their relationship, from their behavior. And in this case, it was just me, myself, and I. So it was kind of a very different process.
So another thing that I've really been interested in is the way that you've been sharing these images are on Instagram, and was this kind of social sharing in a time of separation like very important to this project, or is it kind of how just you felt like it was right to share it that way?
Actually, absolutely. I think this was very crucial to this project, and it was the first, like really first time that I have done something like this, that I would share a project along the way of making, which in the same time put some limitations, because I felt, because usually when you work on a project for some time, then you look back at the images, and you have the possibility to say, okay, this didn't work, I have to take it out and re-edit your whole story. And now, because I decided to share from the beginning, there were moments where, like, oh no, now this image doesn't work at all, but I already shared it, and so but in the same time, it was a very, very rewarding experience for me, because I got to really get responses from people, and I don't usually have this opportunity, and it was quite interesting and rewarding. I would say I would definitely try to do something like this again, I think.
Yeah. So although you did share it on Instagram, do you think it will live in that space kind of as an exhibition, or do you kind of envision it becoming like a physical exhibition or a book, or do you think it just it needs to live in that kind of digital space?
No, I'm not very much of a, strictly digital person, let's say. I think I prefer always physical exhibitions, but of course we don't know how soon this will be possible. So,
Of course.
by the way, I have soon this project will be on online exhibition in Argentina.
Okay.
Which,
Where will people be able to find that?
Hmm?
Where will people be
I
able to
don't
find that?
have there will be even online opening. I'm not so I didn't. I forgot to prepare information. I'm sorry.
That's all right. We're
One
looking at some lovely
second,
pictures.
I will.
I'll
Open.
flick through these again for people to enjoy while you're finding that. So
So the exhibition will open on Saturday, 24th of October.
Okay.
And I will share. I think I will share a link to the opening because at the moment I don't have the link. And there are 23 artists from literally all over the world participating in this show. It's a museum in Argentina.
So what's the name of the museum?
So sorry.
Sorry.
Totally, yeah, I'm totally. Okay, Museo de, because I didn't write it down in front of myself. Now I remember it. Museo de la Carcova in Buenos Aires.
So everyone have a look at that.
So Museo de la Carcova. I'm sorry that I blanked with the name, but
no problem. Don't worry. So should we go back to kind of just talking about, because obviously this work was created and very much influenced by the lockdown period. Besides the creation of this work, what did lockdown look like for you? What was kind of
in the beginning, of course, I had a moment of panic, and it felt like the world is crashing, and what is going to, be, and we can't do anything, and it's boring, and what is, it was so unclear. Like, I think everyone lived this moment, but somehow, very, very quickly, soon after some, things calmed down a little bit, I actually felt nearly the opposite feeling. I felt like, it's not so bad. You can actually have enough time to reflect on things. You can do things that you didn't have time to do before. You can work on, you can be creative without the stress of having, to go to work or do something that you must do because you can't actually do those things, So you can actually just focus on creativity or other things that maybe you were postponing and didn't have enough time to do. And I had time to spend more time with, let's say, my boyfriend, or even have online conversations, more time, with my family through online, all my family is spread out in the world. And we could walk in the parks. We were kind of lucky, I must say, though, because in Berlin it was very relaxed compared to some other places. So it was not same as in, let's say, I don't know, in Argentina or in Chile, because I know people are struggling quite a lot there. I had some students, I was doing online workshops in the same time while I began this during Corona time, and I had opportunity to speak with people from very, very different parts of the world. So I know that they had completely different experience than we did in Europe, and particularly in Berlin. Berlin was very, I think, relaxed in that way.
I actually am not really too sure. I'm not sure I've looked up kind of what it was like in Germany compared to the UK. But I've been keeping an eye on I don't know if everyone else has been keeping an eye on is it Worldometer? There's like a coronavirus.
Is it what? Sorry.
It's called Worldometer. There's a coronavirus section to it, and you kind of see how all the countries are looking kind of.
Yeah.
But so, in this period of isolation, obviously you created this work, so your practice has obviously changed throughout this time. But is it the way that you approached it and more kind of, the lead up to it. Did that change kind of influenced by the isolation that you were kind of experiencing?
How do you mean? The way I
So,
approached the project?
so for example, you said that this was an incredibly kind of spontaneous project. Would you usually work in more of a kind of like do kind of
If I plan things in advance, you mean?
Exactly, yeah.
Well, I used to plan much more before, and I used to even do sketches and, well, even when photographing other people, especially, for example, the project Anna and Eve that I've been working on for 7 years. The first project that I got kind of, well, I don't know, famous, it's kind of a big word, known, and that was exhibited a lot. And this project began from much more planning, for example, and then I started slowly to loosen up my approach. And after this, I think I started really going more into, well, spontaneous is not the correct word maybe, but how to say, more loose, more in the moment, approaching the subjects. So of course it does have always some planning when I photograph other people, because you have to agree with the people to come to their home. You have to get to know them a little bit. You have to look what are you doing and everything. So it does have a little bit more of this kind of process. But still, for quite a while now, I've been trying to not plan so much in advance, and really try to live more in the moment while I'm photographing. But I must also say that this approach also was reinforced by the equipment that I've been using, because
Oh, really?
yes, actually, because I've had a chance to use Leica equipment, Leica camera,
Lovely.
for this project specifically. They actually borrowed me this camera for the whole, Corona time, and also the other project that we will discuss today, that I photographed in Poltava, was also shot with this camera. And even before that, I was working in a project, doing a project in Berlin, photographing a family. Also, I began with this camera. And why I'm saying that it changed my approach, because this camera is very small and it's very kind of easy to use, and you can always have it with you. So it kind of reinforces this kind of more spontaneous and more in the moment process. Because before, I used to actually photograph with Hasselblad, with film, and it requires much more preparations, and it's like it really kind of ties you up. Even though I love working, I used to love working with film, not anymore, but I used to love working with film, and I always thought I will never change it ever for digital,
Yeah.
But somehow now I feel like no, I mean, I prefer much prefer to work now with digital, because you have much more freedom, and much more spontaneity. So and the quality, I mean, when you can have the same quality like Leica, for example, is and in the same time be spontaneous, then what else do you need? It's like
So I think I'll move on to your next project in just a second, but how did you find shooting self-portraiture after not having done so since, did you say 2008?
I didn't hear part of the question.
Oh,
Can you repeat it?
how did you find kind of shooting self-portraiture after not having done so?
No, I mean, to be honest, it was quite organically, it was quite organic, the whole process. It didn't feel strange, but because I was already familiar with the process, I guess, but also because I think I am deep down also a performer, I think, a little bit, because I also play guitar, and I used to dance, and I used to do all kinds of performance arts stuff, not just visual arts. So I think I kind of missed this part, and in this project I can really use all the elements that I like to work with. So it's hands-on. It's really kind of in the creative process all the way, and I get to perform. And it's kind of almost like dancing with the camera. That's
Yeah.
my feeling. I always kind of feel that that's the way. And by the way, always when I work with self-portraiture with this project, and well, I can't talk about what I'm doing right now, but anyways, I always feel when I do kind of work like this, it's so physical, because after this you get really tired physically, because you have to go back and forth to the camera and
Yeah.
nobody's there to look what you're doing, so you have to really like repeat the same action all the time. And after this, it's like after some training, like physical training. That's the feeling.
Yeah, I'm sure running to and fro from the camera. I'm sure you got quite fit doing that. I think it's
Yeah.
more fun than being on a treadmill anyway.
What?
More fun than being on a treadmill on a running machine. A bit nicer.
Much more fun.
Shall we talk a little bit about your project, Poltava Neverland?
Yes, please.
So, would you like to, while I'm going to get these pictures up now, do you want to describe a little bit about how this project started?
Mhm. Yes, well, actually, this is one of my most recent works that I've begun in 2019, and I even continued still this year. I went there again in August. Um, this is the project that I think, one of my most exciting projects for now. What I have, that's how I feel about it, at least. And it began from an artist residency. Well, no, it's not even that. It's even begun much before, because I was invited in 2016 by complete coincidence, or I don't know how they exactly found my work. They've discovered my work and they invited me to exhibit Anna and Eve in Poltava. And Poltava is, I mean, it's quite remote city in Ukraine. Well, let's say not everyone abroad know this city. I think, of course, everyone in Ukraine knows this city, but not so many people abroad heard of it. And I, of course, knew about the name Poltava city, but I've never been there. And when I got invited to do this exhibition, my mom told me suddenly, that your grandmother was born in Poltava. I was like, really? I didn't even know. And then what happened? It was very interesting. I came to the city for the exhibition. I must mention, I'm sorry, that who invited me to do this exhibition, who organized this whole artist residency. It's a contemporary art center called Art Jump. It's basically the only very serious contemporary art gallery in Poltava. And they're dedicated to contemporary art, not specifically photography. They show different, they work with different mediums and different artists, international and also Ukrainian. And really a great art space, actually. So I was quite surprised even of the quality of the work when I arrived there. I was surprised of the level that they are working with. Yeah, so basically when I arrived first time to Poltava and I started to meet people, and I also had a chance to, I did a lecture there, so I got to meet a lot of young creative people there. And somehow I felt that everyone who I was meeting there, it was almost like I knew them since a very long time, almost like they were my friends for years. It was a very, very strange feeling, like, this feeling of familiarity. And I've never felt this way I travel a lot. I travel to so many places, and even to Ukraine, where my parents live in Kiev, I've been there many, many times. I've never had the same feeling. It was very strange. And then I started to walk around, wandering in the streets, and it's a very unusual place also because it has this odd combination of um, you know beautiful city in the center, but in the same time you turn around and there's total decay, you know, like completely deconstructed houses from the Soviet time or even before, and people still live there, you know, this wild nature taking over literally like the city, you know. It's, if you look from above on Poltava, it looks almost like a wild nature, you know, and among the wild nature there's some houses, you know, showing up.
Yeah.
So it's it's very unusual place in that way.
Yeah, the images, you know, I was going to say they have almost kind of a spiritual or mystical kind of feeling to them whenever you look at them. Is that something that you felt while you were there?
Yes, absolutely. This is Poltava is really one of the most mysterious places, I would say, in Ukraine, and mm, not just the atmosphere itself. It's uh, also the people and the historical events that were happening in the place. It's like it attracts very strange combination of things, and many writers, famous writers, used to live there or had some connection to the place, and they wrote about it, or they painted, or you know, they somehow had a connection to the city. Not
Yeah,
just the
I
city.
have.
Poltava is also, it's not just the city, there's a Poltava region. So it's quite big as a territory if you take the whole region, not just the city. But yeah, what was your question? Sorry.
No, I was going to ask about the artist, because I have written down it was and if I'm pronouncing these wrong, I do apologize. But I have written down Nikolai Gogol, Alexander Pushkin, and
Yes.
Ivan Bunin
Mm-hmm.
have all kind of created work based on or influenced by this area.
Yes.
And do you think that it is just this kind of certain kind of I haven't been, but from what I can tell based on your work, this kind of spiritual feeling that you get when you're there?
Well, I think definitely they felt that the city was special, and that's why they kept maybe coming back to it or writing about it. And also, I think certain, you know, mysticism was also created by the writers around the city. That was so it's very multi-layered.
Yeah.
This mythology of the city. And by the way, sorry, now I'm starting to lose my voice.
Oh no.
Um,
Are you all right?
No, I'm okay, thank you.
Okay, cool.
So I also I have to say that I had a lot of help from local people to discover the mythologies of the city, to discover the people who are actually interesting to photograph, and the places that are meaningful. And there were, I mean, many people who helped me, and especially Artur Arayan is a guy who is an architect, and he's also interested a lot in history, and he's doing tours in the place as well. So I have to mention him because he really helped me quite a lot with the creation of this project. And but I really once this project is launched, I will have to really mention many people, because a lot of people helped me to make this project happen. And I think, you know, this kind of city, you don't, from when you come to Poltava, you will not see what I pictured from the first glimpse, you know, like you really have to kind of go deeper and really discover. It's like the city, it's either opens up to you or not, you know. And then I just somehow, I think deep down, was connected to this place. And it was it's like it sort of almost pulled me in, you know. And actually local people say that this Poltava has some kind of invisible gate, that if you come to there just, you know, for a short time and you stay a little bit too long, you might actually never be able to leave, because the kind of gate, you know, shuts its doors and then you can't really leave. Yeah.
Well, that's brilliant. I love that.
And honestly, you know, it's somehow starting to make sense to me, because every time I go away now, because I've been there for several times. I feel like there's this calling, like, come back, come back, come back.
So did you shoot this all in one trip, or was it multiple trips that you shot it in?
No, it was multiple trips.
Yeah.
I've been there twice in 2019 just for the shooting. I'm not talking about the preparation, which, like I said, I was there first time in 2016. So
Yeah.
the residency itself happened just in 2019. And I'm very, very grateful to the gallery, to the Art Jump Center, and Taras Hun, who is the owner of the gallery. He's the sponsor of the gallery, and also Anton Usamov, who is the curator of the gallery, because they really supported my idea and they helped me to, make it happen. They basically created this residency for me, to be honest, because they didn't have this format. I just came to them and I told them, okay, I have this idea for a project and I would really love to come to the city and photograph. And well, okay, it took some time to actually make it realize, but they did, come up with this possibility for me. So it was really amazing. And they supported twice. I came there to photograph from the gallery, and one time I came already on my own because I wanted to, continue a little bit more. It feels kind of like an endless project that I would be able to actually do it again and more and more.
Yeah.
There is so much to photograph there, and every time I come, I cannot. I always feel like there's not enough time, because there is so much to talk about. This is probably the biggest project so far that I've done. I think I have like over 90 images in this project overall.
Yeah.
So I've never worked so intensively, I think, on any project somehow. And this is just a very small part what we're showing right now.
And it's all beautiful as well. Very important to say. So should we speak a little bit? I'm going to stop sharing this. Should we speak a little bit about, I think I mentioned in my introduction that you're very heavily involved in education and you hold workshops.
Yes.
So what is it that kind of drew you to be so heavily involved with education?
I mean, I've always liked this idea of, teaching and doing workshops with photographers who are already, well, I wouldn't say completely advanced necessarily, but who are already know what they're, interested in, what they are doing, because I find it's a very interesting and rewarding exchange, to guide people who are in the beginning of their careers, or in the beginning of their development as a, how to say, artistic journey, that they are not completely yet decided what they're doing, but they know what they're interested in. So I like to help people to develop their projects, to make them stronger, to help them understand how to work in the project format, how to work with images that will be not just images, beautiful pictures, but pictures that will have actual meaning, and that they will have a narrative. That how to create a narrative within one image, for example. This is something that I like to work with people on. And not just this, I mean, I try to put really a lot of information in my workshops, so it's kind of a combination of things. There are lectures, there are critiques, there are practical assignments, and well, online, of course, it's changing a little bit the format, because I cannot do the practice hands-on with students, but I still try to do the practical part in my studio while I'm showing them what can be done, and then they can try at home some of those things. But I'm hoping, of course, to get back to well, by the way, I must say, I am trying to launch now one more live workshop in Berlin,
Mm-hmm.
which will take place in November 6, 7, 8.
Mm-hmm.
This is besides the online workshops that will be in October, end of October,
Okay.
the last 2 weekends.
So where can people find, like, where can they sign up to kind of take part if they would like to?
I have all my information on my website, so
Okay.
people can just write me if they're interested, because the places are very limited. I try not to take big groups because then I cannot give enough attention to everyone, and I like to really go deeper into looking at everyone's work and really working personally with each one.
Mm-hmm.
And this is important, of course, because I think that's the main part, not just to listen. I don't like, for example, workshops where people sell just video and you listen to some information. And, for me, it's kind of a bit, I mean, I might, of course, do something like this at some point as an extra something, but
Yeah.
I like really the personal exchange. I think people come for that mostly
Yeah.
to workshops. They want to talk about their work. They want to develop their work and have this exchange, not just with me but also with the students who come to the workshop, which is, by the way, I find one of the most valuable parts, because the groups that form until now, what I had, the groups were amazing, and really the exchange that happened between the students was superb. I was so excited
Mm-hmm.
about it. We didn't want to separate anymore
I know.
after this 3 days. It was like, oh,
Yeah. So do your workshops usually take place over several days?
Yeah, well, because of it's difficult to have people available over several weekends. I make it intensively on one weekend for 3 days, and then I
Yeah.
make another extra day that we decide on together, where it can be either personal meeting
Mm-hmm.
for personal review of the progress of the project,
Mm-hmm.
or if people want, we can meet as a group and review the work in progress after 2 weeks or something like this, which
Mm-hmm.
usually people actually tend to want meet as a group because they already got to know each other and they want
Yeah.
to see the progress, they want to see the exchange
Mm-hmm. Of course.
again. So yeah.
Great.
But potentially I'm also doing private sessions, like private reviews, but
Mm-hmm.
I think in the format of a workshop, still it's more interesting for to meet again as a group.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
that's what we've been doing so far.
I've actually just had a look at the time, so I think we're actually going to have to move on to our last question now.
I see. Okay.
So quite a big, broad question to finish on, and it's what drives you to create work?
Well, I think for me the most interesting is always to kind of look beneath the surface, if that's makes sense. I like to create images that have some kind of underlay that makes people think and that make them feel something. Same as for me. I mean, when I look at the image, I want to be able to reflect on it on a deeper level and not just be amazed by a beautiful picture.
Mm-hmm.
So for me the main inspiration is when an image makes me think and feel something,
Mm-hmm.
especially if it triggers subconscious response. That's my main inspiration to do something in my work, but also when I look at other people's work, other people's work. I'm mostly interested in this kind of work, that
Mm-hmm.
actually triggers something within me on a deeper level.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess that's the main, yeah.
I think that's a
To
lovely
think
place
and
to
to
end.
discuss and to that work. I like to be able to reflect and talk about something after I saw something. It's like watching a film, for example. If
Yeah.
you saw a very interesting film, then you have something to talk about and to think about. So
Mm-hmm.
for me, that's what drives me to create or to look at other people's work at the same time.
Great. I think that's a lovely place to end. Um, but thank you,
Thank you so
Viktoria.
much.
so
It
much for
was very
joining.
quick somehow. It felt.
I know,
to
it
me.
goes so quickly, doesn't it? 45
I
minutes
like
sounds like
I
a
like
long
talking,
time.
talking.
But it's been an absolute pleasure to have a chat with you, and thank you everyone who joined us today. It's also been
Actually,
lovely to have.
is it possible to see who has been there? Because I'm not able to see.
Let me have a look. I'm not sure we can see who's here. I think I can talk to you a little bit more about that once we go off the call. But
Oh, by the way, I forgot to mention, because you mentioned about this donation button, but I wanted to say that this Poltava project, I am planning to create a book. And this is like my dream, to make a book from this project, because there's so many images and so much to show and to put it together as a story. So this is what I'm raising the money for, in a way. So if anyone is willing to donate something towards this potential book,
yeah.
I thank you all in advance.
As I said earlier, the button should be below. So if you're in a position to do so, do please consider donating, because it's great work, as we've all seen, Victoria. So but thank you again so much for joining us this evening,
I
Victoria.
wanted also to thank everyone who joined this conversation today, and hopefully at some point we can all meet in person,
I know.
and not just online. But I think it's a wonderful opportunity to be able to do something like this, where people can join from different parts of the world. This is really the best, I think, aspect of this online talks.
It is quite, it's one of the few positives that we have out of this at the moment. Is it seems to be that we're able to chat with people simultaneously, or I mean, we were able to before, but we didn't really do it as much. But it's
actually,
quite
the online workshops is the same also. I mean, the best part of this whole thing is that you can get people from so different parts of the world in one time, in one place. It's really quite without actually having to move somewhere. This is quite amazing.
Well, wherever you're watching from, whichever time zone it is, thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Thank you all.
And I hope you all have a lovely day, evening, morning, as I said, depending on where you are in the world. But have a lovely time, and I'll see you next week.
I wish the same, and bye.